We're back at it. So we're talking about eminent domain and how there's persons going around, basically scamming people in the area. I don't know.
Taking advantage of the elderly.
Yeah, taking advantage of their elderly. I don't know if you want to add on to that, or you want to talk more about how the government and the reasons behind that you know what the reasons were behind the eminent domain.
I guess the only real true reasons was property values, knowing the fact that the people didn't know what they had, you know, being misled with all the money that was put in front of them, and them thinking, "Well, I only paid this much for it, and this is what I'm getting." So yeah, it was a trip. Like I said, a lot of changes happened there, and then they eventually, over time, the housing projects went away. That was like our playground,
Yeah.
growing, running around the projects and stuff as kids, and then that all went away, and then more housing, more apartments. So yeah, a lot of families were displaced. A lot of newbies, people from other countries came in, and you know, the whole area changed. As far as the atmosphere and the unity within the neighborhood, it all changed.
Would you say that it got more gentrified, or would you say it got less
What do you
gentrified?
mean?
Would you say it got more gentrified?
What is that?
Like how there was already the railroad tracks, so there was like the left, past the railroad tracks going to the west and past the railroad tracks going to the
When they
east.
got rid of the housing projects, the white side of town became part of the brown side of town.
Yeah.
Yeah, it changed the area, because all those that were displaced from the housing projects, they started moving over to the other side of the railroad tracks, and that changed the dynamics of the races over there. Yeah, also, yeah, it changed a lot.
Okay.
A lot has changed there.
All right. So up to the next question. Um, have you experienced? Have you had any experiences of discrimination yourself?
There was always a lot of discrimination, you know. I mean, just as far as like straight out discrimination, no, but there would be discrimination where you weren't entitled or allowed, well, I shouldn't say entitled, but allowed to do things that others were allowed to do. There was, what am I looking for? You weren't privy to a lot of, you know, stuff back then. It's kind of like they wanted to keep the minorities down while the other people were lifted. So yeah, I could say you could say there was a lot of racism back then, especially growing into my teen years. There was a lot of racism, amongst within the police department that patrolled that area. They would always get us, take us down, beat us, and leave us somewhere else, you know, and stuff like that. But I guess back then nobody really said or did anything about it. You could say it was out of fear of retaliation by them if you filed a complaint. So
So going on that, going on top of that, the fear. How would you say things would have gone if you guys did file a complaint back in the days? Coming from a Chicano background, a Hispanic background.
well, we saw it happen a lot. You know, they would like you were driving, they would pull you over, harass you, a lot of harassment. Um, they would literally tear your car apart, you know. They would take you to jail for trumped up charges, you know. There would be times like come Friday, they would round everybody up, take them to jail because they could hold you for 72 hours. So that would get people off the streets for the weekends and stuff like that. It's just a lot of things that they were doing, which wasn't right. But then again, back then nobody did anything about it. Not like today where people have these advocate lawyers that are there to fight their cases and stuff like that, of discrimination, racism, whatever you want to call it. Back then, we didn't have um, lawyers or anything to back us.
Yeah.
And nobody could really afford them.
Yeah.
The monetary cost was just exceeding what you would normally have.
Yeah. So now that you made that comparison of how things were back then and how they are now, it kind of goes on to this next question. So how have experiences of discrimination or acceptance evolved? When you compare back then and now.
I don't know if it really has.
They just hide it better.
Yeah, everything is just they find ways to cover it up. You know, I don't think it's gotten any better. I think there's still a lot of discrimination out there in the world, and stuff like that. You know, just all you can do is do what you can, and that's about it. You know. So, I married a white lady, so she knows all that stuff.
Yeah. So going on top of that, how would you say if you've experienced coming to the present, have you experienced any form of discrimination or seen any form of discrimination lately?
Your neighbor.
Or like the thing that are you going to talk?
Huh?
Or even like the things that you said from the area that you've told earlier. You remember like how the taco stands or the
Oh yeah, no. I now live in Torrance, which is considered Southside Torrance, which back when I used to come stay here with my dad and stuff, it was different. It was all predominantly white here. My father was what you would call, what did you tell me? Whitewashed. My father was whitewashed. He didn't associate with people of his own ethnicity other than his family. But outside of that, most of his friends were all Caucasians and stuff like that. This is a very upscale Caucasian area. There is, I don't know, like I can't really say this area has changed a lot. There's a lot of people, Asian people, a lot of people coming in from, India, you know, the dynamics of this area have changed, as far as races go. A lot of the Caucasians have moved on. They've all fled to Arizona, Texas, other states. They took their money and ran because property values out here are very extremely high. Um, it made me laugh because I have a neighbor 2 doors down when I first moved here. I had several classic cars and plus our personal everyday use vehicles. And I guess he took it upon himself to claim the street his. And then my daughter's husband had gotten a transfer. They had been trying for years and years to come back this way because they lived up in Northern California. And he got a transfer to come back down this way. And Unfortunately, we had sold our house in Lake Elsinore, which we had for over 35 years. And my father left me this house. I had ownership of it for 3 years prior to even moving into it and stuff like that. And I don't know, I guess this guy, he just felt that this was history, and he was constantly calling code enforcement or parking enforcement on us and stuff, creating problems, videotaping our cars and license plates, and you know, I don't know. It's just people out here. They have that entitled mentality. You know, that's one thing you do see out here. We had we had a taco vendor, street vendor, set up a couple blocks down from us, and it was great because you didn't have to go to other neighborhoods to go, you know, buy freshly made food. But the people in this area, they just like considered it third world. We don't want them people here. This, that, and this. We have what they call the Sleepy Hollow Christmas light displays a couple blocks behind us. And I admit it was getting out of control with all the street vendors coming in, hot dog carts, taco stands, balloon vendors, and it was getting out of control. They were just setting up without even talking about it with residents there. So they enacted an ordinance and everything where they're banned, and even the residents who would used to sell chocolate or whatever out of their driveways, they now have to get a permit if they want to sell anything in their own driveway. Because it was getting out of control, and they put time limits out there now and everything. It's been something that's been there for decades. I mean, decades it's been there, and it just older people moved on, newer families moved in, and to them it's an invasion is what they call it. So I could say that was a form of discrimination. Same thing with the taco stand. It's a form of discrimination when they said all these third world people were coming in. You know, um, I don't know. Like even the guy a couple doors over, he called me a ghetto wetback. I just looked at him and I laughed, telling me to go back where I came from, and I'm thinking, okay. And I said, it's funny because my father bought this house in '65, and his mother bought the house that he's in 2001. So it's kind of like, who needs to go back where? Because his family's from the Philippines. So, it's not strictly Caucasians that could be racist. Everybody can be racist. I'm a racist. I'm an equal opportunity racist. Some people I like, some people I don't. I don't dislike the whole race, but I may dislike individuals. So I call myself an equal opportunity racist.
You also talked about, your cars, and this is something that I know from you. You were part of the car culture. The cruising. You
Yeah,
go
the lowrider
cruising,
cars.
lowrider cars,
Yeah.
cruising. So how you say that as part of you, and how you say uh, that's evolved, or some of the issues as a in the lowrider community or just the cruising community, how has.
Cruising, for a long time they banned cruising in California. They tried to make it a criminal activity and stuff like that because they said that the lowrider culture were a bunch of gang members and stuff like that, which part true but not full truth. There's a lot of people that take pride in building these cars. They invest a lot of time and money into customizing their cars. I remember as a young guy, my mother had a '64 Impala Super Sport, candy apple red with silver inline, molded door, electric doors, trunk. And we used to go cruising in Wilmington on Avalon and L Street, or in San Pedro on Pacific. I mean, you know, low riding is just an old cultural thing of the Chicano people, but they started trying to make it a criminal activity, and they put bans. Like now, there's an old beach out here in San Pedro, Palos Verdes, called we call it Royal Palms, but they call it White Point. Okay, and we used to go there as teens when we had our cars. We'd go cruise up through San Pedro and go down to Royal Palms and just hang out there and stuff like that. A bunch of us would get together and what have you and take our cars. Now they're not even allowed down there. They're banning any type of lowriders or any classic cars, you know, and stuff like that. So yeah, there's forms of discrimination. Here recently they lifted the ban on lowriding in the state of California. A couple months back they lifted the ban. But yet when they have events, cruise nights, you can go to Van Nuys where all the hot rods are at and everything like that. There's no issue. You go down the road to, let's say, Hollywood Boulevard or Whittier Boulevard, the law enforcement's there shutting it down, and stuff like that. They block the road off. They just do what they can to, shut down the cruise nights and stuff like that. And, that's only because it's a different type of vehicle. You got your hot rods and you got your low riders, but they still try and, like imply that the low riders are criminals, and stuff like that. So, it's kind of like pretty sucky.
Yeah.
That you got a nice classic car and you want to take it out there. I think the last time I took the 52 Chevy out there, my grandson wanted to go to cruise night. So we went to Wilmington because they had a good big cruise night going on. And there were so many cops there that my grandson didn't even feel comfortable there. And he was only, 13, 14? And he said, because I gave him that car. That's going to be his when he turns 16. And he told me, Papa, we need to just go home. And I go, why? He goes, there's too many cops. They're pulling people over for no reason. And I said, well, let's just go. So I parked in one of the parking lots there, and I walked over to where, there was some people that I knew, and I said, well, let me go over and talk to these people for a while, this and that, see how it goes, And there they are. The cop cars were lining up and just literally pushing everybody out, telling them you gotta leave. This is an unlawful, unlawful congregation and this and that. So I told my grandson, yeah, you know what, we need to go. So I didn't even go out through the main boulevard. I went down a side street, into another neighborhood to go out that way to avoid the risk of them, pulling us over just to harass us, because my grandson didn't need to deal with that,
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's still a lot of discrimination going on, when it involves, the Chicanos, blacks, whoever is in the lowrider culture.
Yeah, because like you said, it's usually when you're around certain areas that those type of things happen. For example, you said if you go to Van Nuys or, those type of areas towards, for example, like Riverside, Pomona, you're pretty much okay. It's okay to do those type of things there.
Yeah.
But
Well, it depends on what car culture is there.
yeah, and right here in around, for example, let's say San Pedro, Palos Verdes, when it comes to lowriders, I've seen that, it is an issue, because it's, you would say, kind of upscale community. So when it comes to lowriders, a lot of people, they don't really want, the Chicanos to be hanging around that area.
What do they call them? Vermin?
Yeah.
Call them vermin.
Yeah, vermin.
We don't need those rats around here. They're trouble. They just bring trouble with them, and it's not true.
Yeah.
Like I said, a lot of people take a lot of pride and time in putting their building their cars. They put their fancy paint jobs on them, all this good stuff to them. They want to take and show their car off. They want people to see their car because they take pride in it.
Yeah.
They're not criminals.
Yeah.
They're just like anybody else. They got a 9 to 5. They got a family. They got kids. They go to soccer games, take their kids to soccer games, baseball games. But just it's always, what do they call them? Karens.
Karen's. Yeah.
That always have something to say.
Yeah.
Because they're unhappy people.
Yeah.
And but that's just the mentality of Caucasians.
Yeah.
They think they're superior to all.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny that we talk about this because here you got a president that's calling people that are coming across the border rapists and murderers and thieves and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And there was one incident, and that's what he's focusing on and labeling everybody that way.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So now that you went into the topic of, for example, the president and those things, what will you say if like how does he compare versus other presidents of maybe your time when you were younger?
He's a very arrogant person.
Yeah.
He comes from an upbringing, where his family felt that they firmly believe in white supremacy. Okay. Now, I did vote for that gentleman at one time because I saw a man that lost everything and was able to rebuild and make it 10 times over. So I thought, okay, he's going to be good for our country. He's going to re-stabilize our economic, powers and stuff like that. But midway through his term, he started changing. A lot of things that he said he was going to do, he was doing opposite. He started making a division among the people and stuff like that. I am surprised that he won this recent election with his comments. Just, some of the things that he's done and he's gotten away with. It's kind of like that old adage, just turn the other cheek, stuff like that. So, I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and see where this all goes. But, he's got a hard on for the southern border, but you never hear him say anything about people coming in on the west coast or people coming down through the northern border, nor even anything about people coming across the Atlantic Ocean onto our eastern borders. All you ever hear him talk about is the southern borders, and I don't know what it is, but he has a hard on for brown people. I don't care what part of the country they come from down there, and he's really putting a divisional line among the races. And, with his comments and, the way he's setting things up, I tell people jokingly, but kind of realistically, that we may see a civil war by middle, if not the end of next year. Once he's elected, once he takes his sworn into office in January, I'd say come June, July, with the way he's doing things, that we may see a civil war and it'll be a race war.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going based on like civil wars, I mean, the first Civil War was also based on race.
Yes.
I mean, like the only Civil War that we've had so
Yeah.
far. You're just going on the what ifs, the possibilities of, what you're afraid that might happen, the Civil War. But if you look in history, the Civil War that we did have was actually a war based on, race.
Yes, it was.
It was something that you could say. There was, some ulterior motives, different reasons, clash of mentalities and points of views. But yeah, it was ultimately something that involved that, race and those type of things. But yeah, I mean, going to the next question is, what traditions have you have maintained or adapted, since you were younger till now, or like, that you see the society has had, or even within your own family?
Traditions. Hmm. You know, I don't know if you want to talk about traditions, but I look at it this way. Family unity is not what it used to be. A lot of families have broken up. Um, it seems like when the elders leave, the leaves fall off the tree. You know, when the elders were around, families were united, stuff like that. And I can say that for my family, that, speaking on my mother's side of the family, that, when my grandparents left, we had the aunts and uncles, but it just wasn't the same anymore. The families weren't getting together anymore. Um, like now, my kids don't even know half of their cousins. My cousins' children and stuff like that. And let alone my grandson or grandkids knowing any of their cousins, and stuff like that. There's no more family gatherings as there used to be. Yeah, just, I don't know if people just got too busy with their own lives and they just heck with everything else. But yeah, you know. And it's funny because I remember as a child, my grandfather would not, my grandparents didn't allow us to speak Spanish, which I thought was strange because every time they talked to us, they would talk to us in Spanish. But we were not allowed to reply in Spanish. We had to reply in English. And I used to sit there because I had cousins who didn't know a lick of Spanish. And they would come to, when my aunts and uncles would come to visit and stuff like that, my cousin would, what are they saying? What are they saying? And I said, well, if they wanted you to know, they'd tell you. But they're talking that Mexican language. We don't know it. And I'm like, it's not my fault you're stupid and you never learned.
Yeah.
If you paid attention, you'd know what they're saying. But I had cousins that, well, I'm an American and I don't need to speak that shit.
Yeah.
And stuff, but that, to me, that was like a tradition. I feel that, I haven't taught my kids, but they pretty much understand the language. They don't speak it. So yeah, you could say tradition or ethnic, you know, passing down, your ethnic history and stuff like that, teaching your children, your native language, what have you. So yeah, a lot of things are different.
Yeah.
A lot of traditions. You know, I mean, everybody views them differently now. So, I think a lot of it is families have fallen apart
Yeah. Why would you say that your grandparents didn't want you guys to learn Spanish?
because they insisted we were Americans. My grandfather used to say, "You're an American. You speak English." That was their theory, is that you are now an American. When they drew the line in the sand, you were an American. So you basically, I don't know, to me, it was a way of, I don't know, it's kind of like they threw in the towel,
Yeah.
you know, but they always wanted better for us. They
Yeah.
always wanted us to achieve more. And they felt that by speaking the language, you would make more of yourself,
Yeah.
you know. But growing up, going to school, my teachers used to always say it's a great thing to be bilingual.
Yeah. So to add on top of the thing that you said about your grandparents, the reason that being that they wanted you guys to only speak English because you guys were now American, which of course you are.
Hmm.
Did did you ever feel that even though you are an American, you were born here, you speak the language, like culturally, you basically went through a lot of the things that other people went through. Will you say that people still viewed you as not American just
Oh,
because
of
of
course.
how you looked or
Yeah.
how you,
There's always going to be that. People are always going to say, "Oh, that's a Mexican," or they don't see you as an American. They're always going to label you as somebody from another country. You know, I don't think that'll ever. You know, I mean, there's just too much division amongst the races.
yeah,
Stuff like that. I I remember the first time I ever heard the word Chicano,
yeah,
and that was from one of my uncles, and I was probably what about 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 8 years old, and I asked him about something, and he looked at me and said, "You know what? You're a Chicano. You're not a Mexican American. You're a Chicano." And I'm like, "Huh?" I didn't know what that word meant, you know, until he had explained it to me and stuff like that. So, like a lot of my friends tell me, "What nationality are you?" And I say, "I'm an American Mexican." "Oh, you're Mexican American?" "No, I'm an American Mexican." A Mexican American is somebody that came from Mexico and got their citizenship here as an American. I was born here, so I'm an American of Mexican descent. So to me, I see it different. You know, people are like, "Well, it's the same thing." No, it's not. You know, and stuff. So yeah, you know, there's a lot.
yeah. And